There's a reason some houses sit empty for years, why they're sold for prices far below market value, why locals won't even drive past them after dark. These houses have histories that realtors are legally required to disclose in some states, but not in Virginia. Not when the events happened long enough ago. Not when the deaths weren't technically murders. Not when the bodies were never found. The house on Mercy Ridge sat empty for 50 years before Jessica and Ryan Palmer bought it. They thought they were getting a deal, a renovated 1800s farmhouse in the mountains surrounded by forest, with views that took your breath away. They had no idea the house had been waiting for them, no idea it had been empty for so long because everyone who tried to live there since 1974 had left screaming after just a few nights. The ones who left, anyway. Because some people who move into the house on Mercy Ridge don't leave at all. They stay. Forever. Welcome home, Jessica and Ryan. The house has been expecting you. Jessica Palmer stood on the wraparound porch of her new home and felt, for the first time in months, genuinely happy. The house was perfect. A restored 1880s farmhouse sitting on 10 acres of wooded land in the mountains of southwest Virginia, 2 hours from Richmond, but feeling like another world entirely. The renovation had been done beautifully. Original hardwood floors refinished, the kitchen updated with modern appliances while maintaining period charm, new windows that let in floods of natural light. The price had been almost too good to be true. $185,000 for a 4-bedroom house with acreage in an area where similar properties went for 3 times that. "Something's wrong with it," her mother had said when Jessica showed her the listing. "Houses don't sell for that cheap unless there's a reason." It's remote. No cell service. The nearest grocery store is 40 minutes away. Most people don't want that level of isolation. But Jessica and Ryan did. They were both freelancers. Jessica was a graphic designer, Ryan a software developer, and they could work from anywhere with internet. They wanted peace, quiet, and distance from the noise and stress of the city. The house on Mercy Ridge offered exactly that. The inspection had come back clean, the title was clear, the renovations were up to code. The realtor, an older woman named Patricia Hoffman, had been almost too eager to close the deal, offering to cover some of the closing costs herself. "I just want to see this beautiful property lived in again," she'd said. "It's been vacant too long." Jessica and Ryan had signed the papers 3 weeks ago and spent the last week moving in. Now, on their first official night in the house, Jessica felt like they'd made the right choice. Their furniture looked perfect in the spacious rooms. Ryan had set up their home offices in 2 of the upstairs bedrooms. The kitchen was stocked. The wood stove in the living room was ready for the cold October nights ahead. "Babe, come look at this," Ryan called from inside. Jessica found him in what they designated as the library, a cozy room off the main hallway with built-in bookshelves and a bay window. He was holding up a small brass plaque he'd found while unpacking boxes. "It was in that decorative box your mom gave us," Ryan said, "but I don't think it's meant for us." The plaque read, "The Mercy Family, Matthew, Sarah, Daniel, Emma, and Rebecca, forever in our hearts, 1942 to 1974. "That's weird," Jessica said. "The house records say the original owners were named Mercy, but I thought they'd moved away in the 70s. "Maybe they died?" Ryan suggested, though it's odd that it lists their birth years collectively like that. Jessica turned the plaque over and saw something engraved on the back in smaller letters. "They learned the rules too late." A chill ran down her spine. That's ominous. "Probably just a family inside joke," Ryan said, though his voice carried uncertainty. He set the plaque on a bookshelf. "We can ask the neighbors about it if you want, though I'm not sure how close the nearest neighbors are." The realtor said the closest house is about 3 miles down the road, a family named Barrett. They spent the rest of the afternoon continuing to unpack and settling in. The house had a good feeling to it, warm, welcoming, full of character. The afternoon light through the windows was golden and beautiful. Jessica kept catching herself thinking how lucky they were to have found this place. That feeling lasted until nightfall. The change was subtle at first. As the sun set behind the western ridge and darkness crept through the forest surrounding the house, the temperature inside seemed to drop. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. Jessica went to check the thermostat and found it set at 68 degrees, but the display read 61. "Weird," she muttered, adjusting it up to 72. The heat kicked on, and she returned to the kitchen where Ryan was making dinner. They ate at the old farmhouse table they'd bought specifically for this house, talking about their plans for the property, a garden in the spring, maybe some chickens, eventually a workshop for Ryan's woodworking hobby. It was all perfectly normal until Jessica heard the footsteps. They came from upstairs, distinct footsteps crossing the floor directly above the kitchen. Heavy, deliberate, the sound of someone walking from one side of the room to the other. Jessica and Ryan looked at each other. "Did you hear that?" Jessica whispered. Ryan nodded, his face pale. "Stay here." "Like hell," Jessica said, grabbing a kitchen knife. "We're going together." They climbed the stairs slowly, listening. The footsteps had stopped. The upstairs hallway was dark. They hadn't installed all the light bulbs yet, and Jessica flicked on the flashlight on her phone. They checked every room. Empty. No signs of intrusion. All the windows were locked. "Old houses make noise," Ryan said, though he didn't sound convinced. "Thermal expansion, wood settling, that kind of thing." "That didn't sound like settling," Jessica said. "That sounded like someone walking." They returned downstairs, both unsettled. Jessica checked all the doors and windows on the first floor. Everything was locked. They were alone in the house. They had to be. But the footsteps returned at 11 p.m., then again at 1 a.m., and at 3 a.m. Each time they'd go upstairs to investigate. Each time they'd find nothing. By the time dawn broke, Jessica and Ryan were exhausted and rattled, sitting at the kitchen table drinking coffee and trying to rationalize what they'd heard. "We'll get used to it," Ryan said. "Every house has its sounds. We just need to learn what's normal for this place." But as days passed, the sounds didn't become normal. They became worse. On the second night, they heard doors slamming, every door in the house, one after another, like dominoes falling. They'd run from room to room, finding each door open when they were certain they'd heard them slam shut. On the third night, Jessica awoke to find every light in the house on, blazing bright, though she and Ryan had definitely turned them off before bed. On the fourth night, Ryan went down to the kitchen for water and found all the cabinets open, every drawer pulled out, dishes and utensils arranged on the counters in neat rows, like someone had been doing inventory. "We need to leave," Jessica said the next morning. Her hands were shaking as she drank her coffee. "Something's wrong with this house." "We just bought it," Ryan said. "We can't afford to walk away. All our savings are tied up in this place." "Then we'll sell it." "Who's going to buy a house we're selling after less than a week? We'd lose everything. And for what, some weird noises?" "It's more than noises, Ryan. You know it is." But Ryan was stubborn and practical, and he didn't want to admit they'd made a terrible mistake. "Let's give it 2 weeks. If things don't get better, we'll figure something out, but we can't just panic and run." Jessica reluctantly agreed, but that night things escalated. She was in her office working on a design project when she heard whispering. It was coming from inside the walls, faint but distinct, multiple voices speaking in urgent tones. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear: warning, fear, desperation. Jessica pressed her ear against the wall. The whispering intensified, and now she could distinguish individual voices. A man's voice, deep and frightened. A woman's voice, pleading. Children's voices, crying. "Ryan!" she called out, backing away from the wall. "Ryan, come here!" He appeared in her doorway. "What's wrong?" "Listen!" She pointed at the wall. "Can you hear them?" Ryan pressed his ear against the wall, frowning. "I don't hear anything." "How can you not?" Jessica stopped. The whispering had ceased the moment Ryan touched the wall. "It was there. I swear they were voices." "Jess, you're exhausted. We both are. We've barely slept since we moved in. Maybe you should try to get some rest." But Jessica knew what she'd heard. And that night, lying in bed unable to sleep, she heard the voices again. This time they were clearer, close enough that they seemed to be coming from right beside her bed. "Get out," a woman's voice whispered, "before it's too late, before you learn the rules." "What rules?" Jessica whispered back. "The house has rules," the voice continued. "The Mercy family learned them, but they learned too late. They tried to leave, but the house wouldn't let them. Now they're part of it, part of the walls, part of the foundation. Don't make the same mistake." Jessica sat bolt upright, her heart hammering. Ryan was asleep beside her, snoring softly. She grabbed her phone and Googled Mercy Family Virginia 1974. The search results were sparse, but chilling. A few newspaper articles from the time, reports about a family that had disappeared from their farmhouse in the mountains. Matthew Mercy, 42, his wife Sarah, 39, their 3 children, Daniel, 16, Emma, 14, and Rebecca, 10. They'd simply vanished one October night, leaving behind their car, their belongings, everything. No signs of violence, no ransom demands, no bodies ever found. The investigation had gone cold. The house had been inherited by distant relatives who'd sold it quickly to developers. It had changed hands several times over the decades, but Jessica noticed something odd. No one ever stayed long. The longest anyone had lived in the house since 1974 was 4 months. Jessica dug deeper, finding a forum post from 2003 by someone who'd rented the house for a summer. "We lasted 3 weeks. The sounds were bad enough, but then we started finding messages, carved into the walls behind wallpaper, written in the dust in the attic, all saying the same thing, follow the rules. But we didn't know what rules. We tried asking, tried researching, couldn't find anything. Then things got violent. Doors would slam in our faces. Objects would fly across rooms. My daughter swore she saw children in her bedroom watching her sleep. We left everything and ran, never went back." Jessica kept reading, finding more accounts. A couple in 1989 who'd left after 2 nights because they felt like they were being watched constantly. A family in 1995 who'd experienced aggressive paranormal activity, including physical attacks. A single woman in 2011 who'd written a blog post about hearing voices begging her to follow rules she didn't understand. But nowhere could Jessica find what the rules actually were. She shook Ryan awake. "We need to search this house, now, top to bottom. There has to be something that explains what's happening." Ryan wanted to argue, but the look on Jessica's face stopped him. They got dressed and began a systematic search of the house, starting with the attic. They found old trunks full of antique clothes, boxes of Christmas decorations from the 1960s, and stacks of National Geographic magazines, but no answers. The basement was next. It was unfinished, with stone walls and a dirt floor, and it smelled of earth and age. Ryan swept his flashlight across the space, and Jessica saw it immediately. Carved into the stone wall near the stairs, deep enough to still be visible after decades, were words. The rules of Mercy Ridge. 1. Never speak the family's name after dark. 2. Keep a light burning in every room from dusk to dawn. 3. Do not answer voices that call from the walls. 4. Lock the basement door and never open it at night. 5. Leave an offering on the hearth every evening before bed. Below this, in fresher-looking carvings, was a message that made Jessica's blood run cold. We broke Rule 4. The house took Rebecca first, then Emma, then Daniel. Sarah and I tried to leave, but the doors won't open anymore. We're trapped. If you find this, follow the rules. Don't make our mistake. Matthew Mercy, October 13th, 1974. Jessica and Ryan stood in silence, reading and rereading the words. They'd broken almost every rule. They'd said the family's name after dark multiple times. They hadn't kept lights burning. Jessica had answered the voices in the walls. They'd definitely never locked the basement door. They hadn't even known it was supposed to be locked. And they'd never left an offering. "This is insane," Ryan said, his voice shaking. "You can't seriously believe—" A sound from above cut him off. Heavy footsteps, dozens of them, running across the first floor. The sound of furniture being dragged, doors slamming, and underneath it all, that whispering, louder now, more insistent, coming from the walls all around them. "Get out," the voices hissed. "Get out while you still can, before the house decides you've stayed too long." Jessica and Ryan bolted for the stairs. They reached the first floor and found it in chaos. Every piece of furniture had been moved, arranged in a strange pattern that formed a circle in the living room, and in the center of that circle stood the brass plaque they'd found on their first day, now positioned upright on the floor, the family's names facing them like an accusation. "We need to leave," Jessica said. "Right now. We'll figure out what to do about the house later, but we need to get out." They ran for the front door. Ryan grabbed the handle and pulled. It didn't budge. He pulled harder, then tried turning the deadbolt, then threw his whole weight against the door. Nothing. It was as if the door had been welded shut. They ran to the back door. Same thing. The kitchen door leading to the porch, the door to the mudroom. Every exit on the first floor was sealed. "Windows!" Ryan gasped. They ran to the living room window. Ryan picked up a chair and swung it at the glass. The chair bounced off as if it had hit solid steel. The window didn't even crack. "No," Jessica whispered. "No, no, no! This isn't happening!" The lights in the house began to flicker, on and off, faster and faster, until the strobing made it hard to see. And in those flashes of light and darkness, Jessica saw them. Figures standing throughout the house. A man in the hallway, a woman on the stairs, 3 children in the corners of the living room. They were translucent, barely there, but definitely present. And they were all staring at Jessica and Ryan with expressions of profound sorrow. "You stayed too long," the man's voice said, not from the walls this time, but from the figure itself, Matthew Mercy. "You broke too many rules. Now the house has claimed you, just as it claimed us." "What does that mean?" Ryan demanded. "We're trapped until when? Until we follow the rules? We'll do it. We'll do whatever you want." "It's too late for rules," Sarah Mercy's ghost said. "The rules only work if you follow them from the beginning. Once you break them, once the house marks you as rule breakers, there's no going back. You become part of it, part of the foundation. We tried to escape. We failed. We've been here for 50 years, trapped in these walls, watching others make the same mistakes." The 3 children moved closer, their ghostly forms flickering. Rebecca, the youngest, spoke in a voice that was heartbreaking in its fear. "It hurts when it takes you, when you become part of the house. It pulls you apart slowly, makes you into pieces, spreads you through the structure like mortar between bricks. You'll still be conscious, still aware, but you won't be you anymore. You'll be part of the house forever." "No," Jessica said. She grabbed Ryan's hand. "There has to be another way out, a way to break this, to escape." "There is one way," Matthew Mercy said, "but you won't like it." "Tell us." "The house needs inhabitants, living inhabitants. As long as someone is living in the house, following the rules, keeping it satisfied, it remains dormant. It only activates its defenses when it feels abandoned or when the rules are broken. If you can bring someone else here, convince them to move in, transfer the title to them, the house will release you to make room for the new occupants." Jessica felt sick. "You want us to trap someone else? Do to another couple what was done to us?" "We didn't want to," Sarah Mercy said, tears streaming down her ghostly face. "But we wanted to live. So we found a family, convinced them the house was wonderful, even helped arrange the sale. The house released us long enough to leave. But we couldn't live with what we'd done. We drove our car off a bridge 3 days later, all of us. We chose death over living with that guilt." "That's why you're still here," Ryan said, understanding. "You never really escaped. You died feeling guilty, feeling trapped, and your spirits came back to this place." "Yes," Matthew said. "We're bound here by our choices. But you don't have to make the same choice. You can find someone to replace you. You can escape. You'll live with the guilt, but you'll live." Jessica and Ryan looked at each other. The lights were still flickering. The house was groaning around them, as if the structure itself was tightening, preparing to claim them. "No," Jessica said firmly. "We're not doing that. We're not trapping someone else." "Then you'll die here," Emma Mercy said, sadly. "You'll become part of the house, and you'll watch from inside the walls as others move in, break the rules and join you, forever." "There has to be a third option," Ryan said. "What if we burn it down, destroy the house completely?" "The house won't let you," Daniel Mercy said. "We tried. The fire won't catch, tools won't work. You can't damage it from inside." Jessica's mind raced. They were trapped. They couldn't escape, couldn't destroy the house, couldn't fight whatever malevolent entity or curse held this place. Their only options were to doom someone else or become part of the house themselves. Unless... "What if we follow the rules?" Jessica asked. "Starting now. What if we do everything the list says perfectly from this moment forward? Would the house release us, eventually?" The Mercy family ghosts looked at each other. Matthew finally said, "We don't know. We never tried. Once we broke the rules, we only thought about escaping, not about trying to atone. But the house is old magic, old power. Magic always has rules. Maybe if you follow them perfectly, prove you can be proper inhabitants, it might release its hold on you. Or it might not," Sarah added. "You might follow the rules perfectly for decades and still die here, trapped forever. We don't know." It wasn't much hope, but it was something. Jessica squeezed Ryan's hand. "We try," she said. "We follow the rules. We don't doom someone else to this." Ryan nodded. "Agreed. We follow the rules." The lights stopped flickering. The groaning of the house ceased, and suddenly, Jessica could feel the front door's lock click open. She and Ryan looked at it, then at each other. "It's testing us," Ryan said, "seeing if we'll run. If they left now, they might make it to their car, might escape, but the house would stand, would wait for the next victims, and Jessica and Ryan would live knowing they'd abandoned others to the same fate." "We stay," Jessica said. "We follow the rules, and we find a way to break this curse properly so no one else gets trapped." They walked away from the door, went to the basement and locked it, speaking a small promise to never open it after dark. They went through the house, lighting candles and lamps in every room. They found firewood and started a fire in the hearth, placing an offering of bread and salt on the mantel, following old folk magic traditions for appeasing house spirits. And as they worked, they felt the house shift. The oppressive weight lifted slightly. The cold receded. It wasn't warm or welcoming, but it was no longer actively hostile. The Mercy family ghosts faded as dawn approached, but before disappearing completely, Matthew said, "You chose better than we did. Maybe that will make the difference. Maybe your choice to stay and atone rather than flee and doom others will be enough. We hope so. We truly hope so." Jessica and Ryan kept the rules, Every single one, meticulously, for days that became weeks, that became months. They never spoke the family's name after dark. They kept lights burning. They didn't answer the voices when they occasionally whispered from the walls. They locked the basement every evening. They left offerings on the hearth. And slowly, gradually, the house became less threatening. The sounds diminished. The cold spots faded. The sense of being watched lessened. It was as if the house, satisfied that they were honoring its demands, was releasing them from its grip. After 6 months, Jessica and Ryan felt brave enough to try leaving for a day trip. They made it to town, did some shopping, and returned without incident. The house didn't try to trap them. It let them go and welcomed them back. After a year, they felt almost normal. They'd learned to live with the rules, had incorporated them into their daily routine. The house had become, if not comfortable, at least tolerable. They discovered they couldn't sell it, couldn't even list it. Attempts to contact realtors or put up for sale signs resulted in equipment failures and strange accidents. The house wanted keepers, and it had chosen them. But it no longer felt like a prison, more like a responsibility, a burden they'd accepted. Jessica researched the history of the land and found that the house sat on an old Native American site, a place that had been considered spiritually significant and dangerous. The original settlers in the 1880s had built the house according to specific folk magic traditions meant to appease whatever power resided there. But over time, those traditions had been forgotten. The rules had been lost. Until the Mercy family broke them all and paid the price. Jessica and Ryan became the new keepers of Mercy Ridge, not by choice, but by accepting their responsibility rather than passing it to someone else. And in that acceptance, they found a strange peace. The Mercy family ghosts still appeared sometimes, but no longer in warning or threat. They seemed grateful, relieved that the house finally had occupants who understood what was required, who wouldn't make the mistakes they'd made. 3 years after moving in, Jessica woke in the middle of the night to find all 5 Mercy family ghosts standing at the foot of her bed. But they weren't translucent anymore. They looked solid, real, at peace. "Thank you," Matthew Mercy said. "By staying, by honoring the rules, by refusing to trap others, you've broken the curse that held us. We're free now, free to move on." "What about us?" Jessica asked. "Are we still bound here?" Sarah Mercy smiled. "The house accepted your atonement. It will release you whenever you choose to leave, but it will need new keepers eventually. When you go, you'll need to find someone who understands the rules, who will honor them, someone who comes willingly, with full knowledge of what they're accepting." "We'll find them," Ryan promised, "and we'll make sure they know everything." The Mercy family ghosts faded for the last time, finally released from 50 years of haunting. And Jessica and Ryan understood that while they could leave, they wouldn't. Not yet. Not until they found the right people to take over. Because the house on Mercy Ridge wasn't just cursed, it was needed. It kept something contained, something old and powerful that would spread if the house ever fell into true neglect. They were keepers now, guardians, and that was a responsibility they'd chosen to bear. Some houses don't just need to be lived in, they need to be tended, honored, understood. And the house on Mercy Ridge had finally found keepers who understood that. For now, at least, until it was time to pass the burden on. Jessica and Ryan Palmer still live in the house on Mercy Ridge. They've been there for 7 years now, following the rules without fail, maintaining the balance between the house and the power it contains. They've started documenting everything. The rules, the history, the truth about what the house really is, preparing for the day when they find someone worthy to take over. They've turned down multiple offers from people who want to buy the property because they know what happens to those who move in without understanding. The house on Mercy Ridge is for sale technically. The listing exists on obscure real estate websites with a price that's impossibly low. But buried in the description, hidden in the legal disclosures, are hints about the rules, about what's required. Most people don't read carefully enough to notice, but Jessica and Ryan are waiting for someone who does. Someone who reads the listing, understands what it really means, and chooses to come anyway. Because the house needs keepers. It always needs keepers. And someday, it might need you. Would you answer an ad for a beautiful, historic farmhouse in the mountains, going for half its value if you knew the truth? Or would you keep scrolling, grateful for neighbors and streetlights and houses that don't demand offerings? The choice might not be yours to make. Sometimes the house chooses you. If this story has you double-checking your locks tonight, hit that subscribe button for more terrifying tales from America's most haunted places. And remember, when a house price seems too good to be true, there's always a reason. Sometimes it's foundation issues or bad plumbing. Sometimes it's something much, much worse. Read the disclosures carefully, ask about the history, and if the previous owners all left after just a few weeks, run, just run. Some bargains cost far more than money.